we play amazing today. Amazing. We didn't allow this team that is an attacking team oriented to do anything in attack, and these credit to the players, when on Friday in the morning at 8:30, I sat with some of the players and said, hey guys, this is the plan, that if we do this, we'll minimize Austin attack. Then, but you need one of the players have to sacrifice in order that this worked. And Legit stepped up and said, I'm doing it. I'll do it. And then you saw how he worked today, how he battled today, and how he helped the team defensively to do the defensive shit that we wanted to do. And then this is what leaders do, and this is why to have players like him are really important for the team. And in the attack, I think we should have scored 2 or 3 goals. And it was clear chances that we had. We had 3 shots on target, 13 shots total, and 18 crosses. Then it's not about for the quantity; it's not more for the quality of the finishing. And we're coming from a difficult result against Nashville, and that we were disappointed about our performance and result. And the way that we responded today, it was amazing. And I think these players deserve a lot of credit. And we are in the way to build what we want this year. And it takes takes longer, and it's never easy. And you have up and downs in the season. The good thing is that we have a strong mentality and can respond until any adversity that we have in front of us.
Well, we are live. Welcome everyone to the Afterburn Soccer Show. We're so glad that you're streaming along with us, and of course, we'll have our audio up later on the website or wherever you find podcasts. But of course, I'm Nathan. You can follow me at Nathan J. Hill on Twitter. There in the middle is our buddy Jose Carmona. You can follow him at El Chico Carmona.
Hello.
and at the end is Ishmael Belcora at Belcora Ishma. You can follow him there on Twitter. And fresh off of finals week, so relaxing, a little de-stress. So we're glad to have Ishmael back on with us. Yeah, well, hey, we have some good stuff to talk about. FC Dallas beats Austin FC 1-0 in Q2 Stadium in their own house. Austin has not been good this year, but you never take for granted a game in a rival's house, and they are a rival. It's not maybe the same as Houston, but it's a rival. And it was delicious. It was a delicious evening of soccer and a great, strong performance from FC Dallas coming off after that miserable Open Cup performance in Nashville. So let's just do reactions first. How did that win feel, guys? What were some of your takeaways from it? Ishmael, we'll start with you.
Well, it's always great to go to Austin and get 3 points. I think the team has been under some scrutiny lately, mainly because of how inconsistent they've been, and rightly so. And I think that this is the kind of game that defines whether or not players this is transitional points. So this is a game where I see Hader Obrian perform really well and be like, this might be the chance to turn around his lack of luck in this team or something like that. And I think that this is one of the first performances in a good while where it felt complete. They didn't feel like anyone really had a bad performance, and it would just felt like a lot of players had excellent performances. Obrian and Paz and Jesus come to mind, and Siki off the bench. And I think that these are the kinds of games that determine whether or not you are just a 5th, 6th, 7th place playoff team, and whether or not you're 4, 3, 2, 1. And I think that, again, after we haven't won since in almost a month, and I think that this is the way to now that we're getting into this part of the season, this is the kind of game to get us back on track and getting into winning ways and keeping consistent, which has been a struggle this year.
Mm-hmm. Jose, what about you?
Well, I agree with pretty much everything Ismail said, and I want to take it a step further and not just saying that I can't think of a single person that didn't play well, but I want to say that I can think of two people that probably had their best performances of the year to date, and of course, O'Brien being one of them, and someone you want to see have that performance in light of Ariola's injury. This is the O'Brien we want to see going forward. So it's a good sign that he had his best performance of this year. The other guy is I believe Ibeaga had probably his best performance for FC Dallas this season, in a season that has been where he's been very inconsistent. Um, Not to get too excited, but definitely something we want to see more of. I mean, the guy had like 10 clearances. He led the team in uh, passing percentage for the starting 11, and considering he had the most pass attempts, I mean that's been one of his weaknesses. Uh, that we've seen is that he's not really good with the ball at his feet, but he actually even beat two guys on the dribble. So I mean, he just simply had his best performance to date, and hopefully he can stay at that level. I also want to add that I thought Velasco also had a really strong return game, and I think Velasco um, playing at that level alleviates some of your issues that you have on the attack. Having Velasco there, I think, frees up Areola or Obrian to simply be more of the chaos creating types, where they can just run wild and use energy. And Velasco basically, while teams are double teaming him or trying to slow him down, I think like I said, it opens up the rest of the attack, I believe. So I'm very excited with the overall result. It feels good to do it on the road, not at home, and against a rival. So yeah.
Yeah, makes up for some of those drop points at home you've already had this season. And yeah, no, I think I agree with both of your points, and Ibiaga especially too, because it has been up and down. There's moments where it looks like he's just been a nice veteran presence, certainly, but you almost wondered if is he the guy to start there for a stretch of games. But he's proven that he's a really useful piece. He's getting more comfortable, I think, with his teammates and with kind of what he's expected to do, and using his strengths to his to what this team needs. So yeah, I think there was a lot of positives in this one. I think in that clip from Nico that they really had a plan to take care of Austin. Now Austin was missing Driussi and definitely would have been a little more challenging of a game with him out there. But still, Austin's going to attack. They're going to go out and try to get something going. So good on FC Dallas to thwart them and sort of stymie them and then take advantage of things. If there was only a frustration for me, it was just that I wish we had put away another goal or two. Had a lot of chances, a lot of opportunities, missing just a little bit of that quality at the end. But and Paul Areola, had a couple of opportunities that you just you wish you had those back. But speaking of which, if there was a downside to this game too, we saw Martinez go off early. Sebastian went off with some cramps, and the most concerning one is Areola injuring his quad and being really tough situation. So let's go ahead and jump over and hear what Nico had about the injury updates for this team.
We'll have an MRI tomorrow morning, and we'll know more about his injury. With this, the way that the rosters are made, we have limited senior spots. Then it's an opportunity to young players, and I always say the opportunity to a young player is not that you have to give the opportunity. If it is the player earns that opportunity, and we have players like Bernard, Jose Mulato, like Herb Endeley, Ahmed, and Nolan, that they've been working with us and they are making progress, and they are performing well with North Texas, and this is helping them to have this opportunity. And they have to be ready because, as you know, and as you said, the schedule that we have in front of us, it will make us to make some decisions that will put them in the starting or will put them on the field during the game. And I think they're working really good, and this is one thing that we are really happy that they are able to work every single day with us this season. And if they have to step into the field, I think they were gonna be ready.
When I realized I picked the wrong clip, there in a later clip, Nico, in a later segment of that time, Nico says that, I believe he said, that so Paul Arriola will have an MRI tomorrow morning. Jesus Jimenez has an X-ray today. Whether he needs surgery, which could mean he misses a significant amount of time, which would be really, really tough, really disappointing, I guess. Or whether it just needs another week or so of rest. And then also Sebastian needing a MRI to see what's going on with him. So there could be some really significant injury hits for this team going forward. Jose Martinez is good to go. Of course, Alan Velasco is back, and Tafari is also back. So it's not all bad news for FC Dallas, but that does make this congested schedule really tough for the team. So let's just start with Paul, since he has been such a presence in the roster for a while, even especially when Velasco was out. Is Haider Obrian, has he shown enough at this point that he's the go-to guy, or is it also an opportunity for guys like Kamungo? And by the way, I thought it was interesting that he mentioned Herbert, because if there's someone who's been balling out for North Texas from this senior team, it's been Herbert Indley. He's been playing really well at a right wing, right back, so he could be a wild card in this conversation too. Jose, what do you think? Who slots in? Who helps lessen the load?
Well, I mean, it's clearly going to be Obrian, and I'm kind of excited that he did mention Endele and Molato and Kamungo, but he hasn't really played them much. It's like he's saying. I mean, Kamungo's been getting in some late games, and I would assume that he's the biggest beneficiary of this playing time that's available. I hope he gets the chance to get a start or get significant minutes now, more so than he's been getting. But he has to earn Nico's trust. I think that's very important, that players get his trust. I am surprised that he mentioned Endele, but it also goes to show that Endele has had his best matches for North Texas playing on the wing as opposed to right back. And he's dominated a couple of matches already. I mean, I don't think he's done it consistently enough that I would say, oh yeah, give him some minutes with the senior team. I'd like to see him dominate for more than every other match. Like he's been doing like every other match, where he's looked dominant. I'd like to see him put together, multiple matches where we can say, oh yeah, absolutely, he's too good to be playing at that level. He's showing flashes that he is too good, but he hasn't done it consistently enough for me to say 100% he's too good for that level. And he may be mentioned because really, what other options do we have? We're limited. With Arriola getting injured, it weakens our already thin wing. It's great that Obrian seems to be getting back into the groove and back in form, but with all the congestion and stuff, Jesus, losing Jimenez and Arriola for long times, I mean, that's only going to hurt this team.
Yeah, and I mean, like, whether or not it's Obrian or Kamungo, I feel like is besides the point, because they're both gonna play. We got 6.5 games in 25 days. That's a lot,
Yeah.
right? And I think that every single player is gonna have to step up, and it's really encouraging to see that. I think this was Obrian's first start, that he performed at this level. In his first start, that gives me a little bit of hope going into this tough stretch.
Agreed.
Again, working under the assumption that, like, the worst case scenario, that it's Arriola, Jimenez, and then Leggett is out for a little bit. Like, under all of those assumptions, you're just gonna have to work with what you got. And I think that and the league performing at the level that he has at North Texas is again good support for the players that are going to have to perform. And I think that when you look at Vancouver, like these next couple of games, when I talk about this is the crunch time of the season, these next 6.5 games, if you look at every single one of them are winnable technically. Like these are teams that are not, maybe with the exception of Nashville and San Jose and St. Louis, and all of those three teams are at the same level of Dallas, right? They're like around the same position in the table, and I think that these are all games that if you come out with poor performances, you're going to get poor results, and this is a time in the season where that might make or break how good FC Dallas does for the rest of the year. And I think that, again, the injuries are really poorly timed, but this is when Kamungo needs to show his best. Oberyn needs to show his best. Probably if Jimenez is out for a long time, Jesus is going to need a break, and Mulatto is going to have to show his best. Velasco is going to have to show what he did in Austin consistently, which hasn't been the case this year. Siki might have to support. Like all the players that have been on the bench that we've all seen glimmer of good play need to step up in the next couple of weeks if we're going to come out of this stretch with a smile on our faces.
And I want to add that I agree with what you said. And Siki, I think it's encouraging that he had that awesome pass to Jesus, because that's what he's been missing. He's been missing. I mean, he's been able to show that he can break down people with the ball at his feet, but we haven't really seen him make that kind of pass consistently. So it's good for him to show that he has it in his arsenal, and that's something that we need to see more from him. That would help alleviate, give a rest to the Jet or Paxton or wherever they want to play him.
Yeah, and I like that Kamungo has been earning some minutes. He's been getting on the field. He's had a crucial goal. I think there's some real positives to his development. So that if we have to start him in one of these matches this week, which of course, there's a lot of depending on kind of what happens injury-wise with these teams, with players and everything. But I think there was probably one of these games he gets his first start, and that would be exciting. Now, I would, if we do that, I would rather it be Wednesday night than Saturday against Houston. Not that I'm saying Vancouver's a joke, but I just think a little extra pressure in a rivalry match if you're getting your first start. So,
Vancouver does play the low mid block. That is the Achilles heel to FC Dallas. So, regardless of what you think of Vancouver, they're always a danger to FC Dallas.
Yeah.
And actually, if you think about it, when you play the low block, what you probably want is a player that can dribble more than a fast player. And so that Kamungo is probably a better fit than Oberyn, given the talent, the difference in how they play.
But we could see another tweak of the lineup. And in fact, let's jump over to another clip from Nico. I asked him about the high press against Austin, which worked really well. Can they keep doing that against other teams? And let's listen to his response.
Well, I think we'll see. We'll see. I hope so. We try to do it every game, but the opponents also have different plans. And I think in this game we found the right shape to in the right instruction to press them, and it helped us because even that we press a lot to them, I think we recover the ball very quick, and then this helps us to also control the game. In other games, sometimes it's difficult to win the ball, and this is what makes more exhausted for the players, and the players can get tired. Our purpose is always to try to recover the ball as high as possible and as early as possible, and we'll see if we can sustain that throughout these games, and if we have to make some adjustments. And also sometimes, for example, against RSL, we're looking for more to have a preventive shape, because we knew that they want to look for certain things, and then from there build our attacks. And I think it worked very well in the first half. In the second half, we didn't do a good job on that. And then we have to find ways to be aggressive and also in her opponents, and also not to be that aggressive and hurt the opponents. Summer is coming, and the heat is a big factor also in the possibility to do that. And we know from last year it's difficult, and this is why we're looking for other type of shapes that help us to be successful. We'll have an.
Sorry. So you continue to look for other kind of shapes to be successful. And I think I appreciated his response there, because it is, when the high press works, it is so destructive in soccer. I mean, it can just unravel opponents in minutes, but it demands a lot from these players. And when you're in a run of games like this and you're missing out some guys, it's just hard to maintain that. So it was cool that it worked against Austin. We'll see whether it works, or what they're going to have to try to do to figure out how to unlock Vancouver on Wednesday night. And that's another thing Nico said today, was that they're going to take it one game at a time, so they're not looking ahead to Houston. They're going to focus on beating Vancouver at home first, which good.
And I think what he was referring to as far as effectiveness is when you're going to employ a high press, you got certain triggers that trigger that high press. But just because the players are aware of the triggers doesn't mean they all react or recognize those triggers as quickly as they should. And against Austin, they did. That's a team thing, and the whole team needs to react simultaneously to take advantage. And seeing the team be effective against Austin, that's a good sign. It's a good sign that the team's getting on the same page, and hopefully it's a good sign that, like I said, you don't have to high press all the time, but if you high press on the triggers, I think this team they're showing that they're getting it, and that's a good sign. I think honestly that's what's been missing. Not the only thing that's missing, but it's been a big part that has been missing from this team is the ability to force teams to turn the ball over and head them on the counter quickly after those turnovers. And yes, I'm hopeful that we will see more of that.
Yeah, and I think that when it comes to high press, I don't think the expectation can be that those triggers are always that the players always react to those triggers, because to be able to do that 34 games in is only something that like New York Red Bulls can do, and like they could only do that for one season before it became something that was inconsistent. Playing a game in high press is something that is reactionary, and I think that it's very important when it comes to important games like rivalry games, right? And I think it's encouraging to see the players react to those triggers against Austin, and depending on how Houston comes out on Saturday, I think, which is like that game's going to be very difficult considering Houston's coming from Minnesota. It's going to be, again, a heated rivalry. Both teams are on the same place in the table. Houston a little bit lower. They're going to get Hector Herrera back. Like, that's another game where you want to see the players react to the triggers. But I don't think the expectation can be that there's high press in every game, and I think that's something that Nico was alluding to as well. Because again, that's just not realistic in a season where we're gonna have the League's Cup, we have Open Cup, all of these, like, this influx of games. That can't be the expectation. But when it comes to important games like this, when the players do react properly to those kinds of opportunities, it's very encouraging.
Well, good stuff. Before we come back to this week of action, let's talk about North Texas for a few minutes at least. And shout out to Coach Cano and that squad. They went up to San Jose and played the Quakes too, and came away with a really vital road point. They did lose the penalty shootout following it, so didn't get the extra point, but a pretty gutsy performance overall, and a sign that I think this young team, continues to keep working to figure things out and build upon their results. I have to keep raving about their phenom goalkeeper, who I hope that there's conversations going on about signing this kid to a North Texas deal at the very least. Although he has all the time in the world, but that's Julian Eystone, tall, 17-year-old keeper, 16-year-old, 17-year-old keeper, and he's just playing so well, playing so calm, and yeah, and so while Antonio Carrera is out with the U20 World Cup, congratulations to him. It's great to see Julian step in there and really just lead that back and help organize that squad, and I just really enjoy watching him play. Jose, your thoughts on him? What you think he's FC Dallas need to be thinking sooner rather than later about tying him up to some kind of deal?
Absolutely. I mean, he's at that age where it's just a matter of time before teams, from Europe and whatnot, start eyeing him up. They probably already are. And he's at that age where you want to lock him up, but does he want to be locked up? Um, Preferably some kind of hybrid deal would be what you want to offer him. You're not gonna have four goalkeepers on your senior roster, but
Right.
I mean, and we don't want to see that. But is he willing to take a North Texas deal? That's the big question, because that's all they can really offer him this year is a kind of hybrid deal. And we've seen this before. We've seen players who say, "Hey, I'd rather just take my chances elsewhere." And he's getting to that age where we have to start getting worried that, hey, if they don't sign him soon, that window may have passed already. So we'll see. I mean, he's doing great, and I would hope that we'll see a lot of him, but I think you're going to see rotation between him and the third keeper.
And I mean, when you look at the current stock of goalkeepers that we have, the age that you really have to be concerned with Eystone is that he turns 18 next April. That's when being able to go to Europe becomes more and more of a possibility, and visas become less of a problem and all of that. And I think that it's encouraging, at least when it comes to the other goalkeeper in question, Antonio Carrera, who's at the U20s, that he's 19 at this point, and the club has somehow been able to convince him to stay, right? And I think that that's positive, hope that we're going to be able to keep Eystone. I don't think he'll take a North Texas deal that runs until he's 20. That's probably very unlikely. But another thing to consider is that Jimmy Maurer is getting up there, right? And if the team is convinced in both Carrera and Eystone's abilities as second or third keeper, that is possible at the end of the season, right? It's not 100% guaranteed that Jimmy leaves in December, but it's something probably that the club is looking at, considering now Carrera is going to be at the U20s with a lot of eyes on him. Eyestone's performing week in and week out. And so it's just, again, this is when Sonoda's ability to make a roster comes into play. How he's going to be able to balance keeping talents, selling them at a profit, and seeing what the coach needs. And hopefully both players are here next year. But again, it's like Nathan was saying, it's something to be looking at just based on Eystone's performances and Carrera being able to get called up. This is going to be a very interesting turning point in December on what these keepers do for their future.
I agree.
And I mean, not to disagree with you. I mean, I think December's correct, but you can't, having a guy like Jimmy could be also a tradable asset if you're 100% sure that Carrera is ready to make a step up. I mean, it's all depending on how they think, Carrera and Eystone are doing. But I mean, Jimmy, I'm a big fan of his, but having that kind of player, I mean, I'm sure there's other teams in the league that would not mind having that kind of backup, especially if their starting goalkeepers are banged up and whatnot. So I think he's someone that I wouldn't be shocked if there's a trade in the near future for him. Although I do agree that December is the most likely time when we'll find out.
do y'all think that going into 2024, if it's possible to have Paz, Kura, and Icestone, that's a good goalkeeper core going into 2024? Like that will be something that's like buildable.
I think
It's a,
so. I think it
yeah,
is,
good question. But
and then let's not forget that if that was the case, if you have those three, one of the two younger guys would probably be looking at a loan. They wouldn't necessarily all have to be on the FC Dallas roster.
you know, and the other wild card in all this is that Paz himself has been playing out of his mind, and he is a European. He has his passport. He could easily go back to Europe with the right bid, and it would be tough because he has been just one of the stars of the season. It's just so steady back there. In fact, let's jump over to his save. Here's his save.
Oh yeah,
Good stuff. Good stuff from Martin. So yeah, there's just a lot of scenarios, ways this could go, and Jimmy's certainly part of that of what he decides to do with
well,
his career. And
I mean, in the off chance that a bid comes in for Paz, then Jimmy's value then skyrockets for this team because I'm certain that Nico would rather have a veteran goalkeeper than a young goalkeeper as his number one.
Or at
So
least on the roster, just as like backup.
yeah,
If
yeah,
Guerrero would win the job, you would want someone like as consistent and as mature as Jimmy on that roster.
and I'm just saying that also that highlights his value, not just to this
yeah,
team, but to any team that wants him. He's the kind. It's nice to know that you have a guy like that as your number two guy, and a guy that can step in as a number one if needed.
well, and the question for me is at what point? I'm going to try to pull his stats up real quick. At what point is Carrera not just a young keeper anymore? But let me see. I'm trying to see how many games he's been in, but this website doesn't have his North Texas appearances because the guy has now logged about 3 seasons of minutes. Sure doesn't have. It's not very helpful.
Yeah, but I think we want to see him at least get some cup games or something like that. I don't. That's the next step. I mean, League's Cup would be a perfect opportunity to give him minutes if depending on. But would you start Carrera if you're taking that term seriously? No, you wouldn't. But I'm just saying, I'd like to see him get some MLS matches under his belt because I
Sure,
mean
sure.
at the end of the day, MLS it's faster and there's a lot more shenanigans going on in the box than you see that you're going to deal with in North Texas.
Sure. Yeah, I'm having trouble pulling up his stats because it seems like he should have had close to 30 starts at least at this point, which is just good. But you're right. It's a different transition to MLS from MLS Next Pro, and so. But even these minutes with U20, hopefully he can win the job there and get some minutes. But okay, so that's good. We're hopeful that North Texas will continue to build upon that. But let's return back to FC Dallas as we close out the show. 2 matches at home. At least that's a little relief that they don't have to deal with that travel on top of a congested schedule. Get a little chance to rest. They're going to have to juggle some players. They're going to have to be creative this week. I mean, credit to Jesus Ferreira, who has just been logging minutes. I hope we don't run him into the ground, but he seems to be very fit. He seems to be one of the fittest players on the team, and is able to recover and able to play, and that's a big time credit to him. So let's talk about this week. What do we want to do? We want to do predictions. We want to.
I think it's interesting looking at both of these games. They're, again, like I was mentioning before, like the majority of the games coming up, both of these games are extremely winnable. Vancouver just played in Portland, on Saturday and are going down to Dallas in the summer heat. And then Houston are going to be playing in Minnesota midweek without Hector Herrera and then coming down to Dallas, right? Both games are again winnable. And I think that when looking at the Vancouver game, this team is one that's been super consistent. And this last game kind of just screeched it to a halt. Like they've been like on a good run of form. They got them like up in the table, and then they lost to Portland. And like that would be like a gut punch. And I think that when it comes to this next game, when we were last in Vancouver, they played low block, stifling everything, not letting anything through. We know that's the Achilles heel of this team. So the way to win this game is how they approach it. Can't really be the possession game. I don't know. Like it could be the high press. So again, it depends on how this team goes into it and whether or not they have the game plan like set in stone and are able to break down Vancouver.
And I'm going to go ahead and make my prediction for both matches and say that they're going to win both matches by the score of 1-0.
Oh, okay.
And that's based on my highly scientific research that shows Dallas with 5 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses, and a goal differential of 2. So very consistent. I'll take a 1-0 win against Vancouver and a 1-0 win against Houston.
I'll say 0-0 against Vancouver, and then Houston is going to be a bloody game, 4-2. Give me some fireworks.
Wow.
Okay.
I like it.
Did you see what Hector Herrera just did last game? Their new DP got a red card 18 minutes in for like putting cleats up on Ladero's shin. Like it's going to be a bloody game. It's going to be very intense.
Yeah, it's going to be cheapy as all hell. That's for sure.
Does Houston play midweek?
They do against Minnesota.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I think both teams will be tired, and so I think it's going to be a very chippy game. I think it's going to be some. I mean, it's going to be some yellows flying out unless the refs let them play, in which case it'll be a drag down, beat down kind of game.
Good stuff. Well, I'm going to go with I think a 1-0 victory against Vancouver. I like that prediction. But I'll go with a 2-1 against Houston. And I agree, it's going to be Houston's going to look for that point. They're going to claw their way back in or get an early goal and just be happy with a point. And so we're going to have to push hard for a go-ahead goal, and it may come from an unlikely source. And so I hope. I don't know. That sounds really cryptic when I say it like that, but. I hope it's going to come from someone new, a fresh face that gets their first minutes, Major League Soccer or something like that. So it could be fun. Maybe like a Nolan Norris. Well, I guess he's had some minutes already, but someone like that comes in off the bench and gets the game winner. Would be exciting.
Also worth noting, this game against Houston is the first one in Copa Tejas because last weekend did not count.
Yeah.
So
imagine that.
Yeah.
Lucky Austin. All right. Well, good. Well, let's leave it there. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Ishmael.
Thank you for having me.
It was a good week because we missed last week, but it wasn't, that abandoned match will be made up on an upcoming Wednesday. So again, talk about congestion. Will be kind of a weird one, but this was kind of a strange week. Not a lot to talk about in some ways, and that Open Cup match was such a downer. But hey, we're in renewed spirits, and we have a lot of soccer action to enjoy this week. So great. So thanks everybody for listening in, for watching. We did have an issue with their comments. I couldn't see if there were comments that were coming up, but let's go see Dallas. I think the Dallas Stars are playing right now. So a lot of action to enjoy this week. Please like, subscribe, share, whatever it is you like to do. It's cool with us. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.